Hi, I'm Steve Cooper with Pleck News, and today we're going to be shooting in the studio here. It's actually a studio that I made for a kids show that we're doing, but I usually shoot outside on the ranch, and I enjoy that more. It's kind of just out there sitting on a big boulder and talking, but it's just too noisy. One neighbor has a donkey that's really loud, and there's tractors going on. So anyway, we decided to do it in here. And I picked the kind of the most sane looking place in the studio because, like I said, it's a kid show. If I turn the camera around here, you'd see it looks really wild. So anyway, I'll stick with this. And what this is a mine, the Lost Senses mine. And I was going to take the sign down, but I got to thinking, really that's what we're about. We're like we're a mine for the lost senses of America. Somehow America lost its mind, and we're searching for it. And we better find it really quick because things are going downhill. So I left the sign up, and plus I don't have to take it down and put it up again, so that's kind of nice. Anyway, what we're talking about today is the path that America's on. The path it's on is the social path. We're being governed by sociopaths. And, we always have been to a degree, and, at one time that might have worked. It's hard to get away from in some ways. But we would elect our sociopaths, and they would counter their sociopaths, and kind of a balance there. And we'd have to invest our children from time to time in war, really stupid wars. But we were able to keep our freedom and our autonomy from government to a big degree, and it sort of worked. It was painful at times, but it sort of worked. It doesn't work anymore, and the reason it doesn't work anymore is because of technology. We can't give this power to people that science has given us. We can't give it to the sociopaths. Um, Recently, I did an article in a little newspaper, a little micro newspaper, Pleck News. It was a satirical article about this couple who had a baby, and the baby came out looking just like Bill Gates. They had both been vaxxed right before she became pregnant, and they're beginning to wonder what had happened there. It was more in the mRNA than they thought. And it's pretty far fetched, but really is it that far fetched? I mean, look what technology is doing. Is it possible that someday we might be able to take some sociopath scientist, be able to take his DNA and tie it to a virus and send it out to where people start having babies that are kind of like this person? I don't know. I hope not. But there's things that we have to deal with now that have never been dealt with in history. The model of having sociopaths rule us cannot go on any longer. I mean, it's already maybe too late. What technology has done is it made these people into demigods. I mean, you look at them, you look at the things that they're doing, just the everyday stuff these wealthy people do. They fly around in their own private jet like a magic carpet or something. They go in the world. In the military, you have the drones. Some guy sitting in an office with all these screens, and he's watching this drone clear across the world, and he spies some people that he wants to shoot down, and he sends a missile after him and kills them. Just in real time, he's watching this whole thing from the safety of his room. And I mean, that's godlike powers. That's just incredible to kill somebody clear across the world just in the comfort of your own home. It's getting pretty weird. You look at the power they have with tracking us. We all carry those little cell phones. I call them spy phones because they keep track of where you're at within like a yard or so. They keep track of who you're talking to. They know all your circle of friends. And the facial recognition software out there, they can recognize you 100 yards away by your iris. That's how powerful this stuff is. And they're just building up a database. They have your psychographics. They map out all your friends. They map what you say. They know who you are, probably better than you do. It's really creepy stuff. And we're giving this power to people who should not have it. You take a look at the nuclear weapons we have. Incredible power to wipe out a whole metropolitan area just in an instant. I mean, is that not godlike powers? They just not that long ago discovered Sodom, and it definitely was Sodom. The buildings were just blown apart, big building blocks blown all over the place. The whole thing was a large area, and it was just totally annihilated in an instant. The earth was burned. They had nothing that could raise the temperature of the earth up like that. Pottery was partially melted. That takes extreme heat, and there's sulfur and ash everywhere. There really is no other explanation. There's nothing back then that could do that. But now we can. We can annihilate a metropolitan area in an instant like God did with Sodom. So who do you trust that to? And all of this incredible power has come upon us just really quickly. If you look at, like when I was a kid, I remember sitting there with my grandfather, and he was an old cowboy. I mean, a real cowboy. They had like 5 sections of land in Texas, cattle drives, and all that kind of stuff. And I sat there with him as we watched some men land on the moon. But I remember looking at him and seeing him dressed in his cowboy hat and his kerchief and cowboy boots, and knowing his past and where he'd come from, and watching him watch a man land on the moon on his TV was really almost more interesting than the people landing on the moon. It stunned me to realize what this man had seen as far as changes. It just happened incredibly quickly. When I was a kid, I'd planned to be a scientist. I thought that that's where I wanted to do. I was always building bombs, and just even as a very young age, shouldn't have probably been allowed to do that, but I was doing all sorts of stuff. Everybody thought I was going to be a scientist. I thought I was going to be a scientist. But then when I was about 11 years old, I read this article in this magazine about the laser beam. It was a brand new discovery, and it was just wonderful. It was amazing. They already knew they could do surgery on people's eyes without cutting them up, just going through the clear lens. And I was just reading these wonders, and it was like, you know, like all the science fiction movies I love, like it's coming true. And the first thing that they wanted to do at the end of the article is turn it into a weapon to start frying people's brothers and sons and dads in war. And I don't know why it hit me that so hard, but it hit me really hard. I thought, what is wrong with us? Something is deeply, deeply wrong with us. And I didn't know anymore if I wanted to be a scientist. I thought it's like developing technology would be like giving a shotgun to a toddler. You know, he's going to be able to figure out how to use it, but it's not going to be good. And I just realized that technology is kind of like an amplifier. You know, when you speak in a bullhorn or a megaphone, your voice is in waves, and then that same wave pattern is made much more powerful and forceful on the other end of that. And it seemed to me like that's what technology does to the human soul, the human spirit. It amplifies it. So that, you know, in the past we would throw spears at each other. And now we can throw ICBM missiles across the world and annihilate each other. And I just didn't know if that was going to go good. And I really was rethinking the whole thing about becoming a scientist. And I think that pretty much is where I started changing. I was probably about 11 or so when that happened. But, you know, and the other thing too was that we had it was during the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis. And I was in elementary school, and we'd have these practice things to where they would sound like the sirens, and we would all go into our room, and we would get underneath the desk and pull the blackout curtains. You know, in fact, that was my job, to pull the blackout curtains. And then we were supposed to cover our heads under our desk. It was a horrifying time because we realized, you know, it wasn't abstract. We realized that we could wake up the next day and the world would end. And that was from technology. But you know, sociopaths are just everywhere. You look at nice little companies like Nestle. You know, Nestle gives us this great chocolate bars and all this good stuff to eat, and not good for you, but good tasting stuff. And I remember the old Nestle Quick Bunny that they had commercials for. You know what? Aren't they great people? Just wonderful stuff that they give us. Well, they give us sociopaths too. They invented an infant formula that was just pure junk. And they put it out as this modern new way to feed your baby. They knew that it was junk. I mean, they made it. They knew what was in it. And what they did, like in Africa, they would dress people up like nurses. And they weren't nurses. They just dressed them up like that and sent them out to give advice to new mothers and tell them how wonderful it was to feed your baby this new way. And they'd give them a free sample of this milk substitute. And it was just long enough lasting to where their milk would dry up and then they have to buy it. So they killed lots of babies, and they knew. I saw the Senate hearings, and they knew they were killing babies. I mean, they didn't admit it, but everything they said showed you they knew it. What kind of person kills babies for money? I mean, that's below your normal hired assassin, I think. And yet these people did it, and You can go on to a lot of people like that. You look at the tobacco companies. The tobacco companies, they knew they were causing diseases. They knew they were killing people, but they did everything they did, false research, all this kind of stuff to hide it. If any doctor came out and said that the cigarette smoking was causing diseases, he lost his medical license. It takes a lot to get a medical license. You don't want to lose it. And what they did too, they hired Sigmund Freud's cousin, who knew what he was doing and all the research and stuff, and they hired him to convince women to smoke because mostly women didn't smoke back then. To their twisted mind, they were losing half their customer base. Seeing attractive and powerful to smoke for women, and they'll start smoking, and they did. It was very effective, very evil, but very effective. Incredibly wrong, incredibly destructive. People's mothers and fathers died, and later on, my mother died from smoking, and it just what they did was just unconscionable. You would never do that. You would never do that for money. I would never do that for money. But these people are very different. And that's one thing we have to keep in our mind, as these people are different to the bone. They are cold-blooded people. They really are. There's something just really, they've made choices that have destroyed their humanity. And now they just are these creepy little things that slink among us. And we have to stop them. We have to marginalize them. I've just been reading this book by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I got it in my mailbox here, fresh out of the mail. The Real Anthony Fauci. This book, if you want to know how the world really works, if you want to look at it through clear eyes instead of the convoluted stuff they are feeding you on CNN and NBC, Robert F. Kennedy is a brilliant man. He's an attorney. He's taken on these major corporations, and he's won. He's totally won the lawsuits, like historic lawsuits. He's brilliant. He has a team that is working with him that are brilliant. These aren't people that are spreading conspiracy things. I don't make anything out of this book, but you really need to read this. This will open your eyes to what's happening, because we have to have clear vision. We have to know where we're at. The things that Anthony Fauci has done are horribly criminal. I mean, they're the same as the Holocaust. He's not as bright as Hitler to get the power that Hitler had. Hitler was I don't know, how would you call it, like talent on loan from hell. Anthony Fauci is not as talented as Hitler or Stalin, but he's every bit as evil. If he had that kind of talent to convince people and move the masses, he would do it. If we let these people rule over us, our children, ourselves, especially if you're Christian, they will be put into prisons. That's what they always do. They will kill approximately 10% or more of the population. That's what they always do. Because there's a certain amount of people that will not re-educate. And they know the formula. They know it's about 10% who absolutely will not re-educate. And their solution for that is to kill them. So this is what you're looking for yourself, for your children, your grandchildren, if you don't do anything. And so that's why I'm doing this series. We're looking at some things that have to be addressed. We can't just say, oh, I'm going to go watch TV and forget it. It's going to turn into one of the nightmare movies that you've seen. It's going to turn into a very dystopian, creepy nightmare. Look how they had pink lights in New York when they signed the bill that you could kill a baby up to birth. I mean, think about it. What monsters. They want to kill babies up to birth, and they were laughing and signing the bill, and they had pink lights all over New York. What would those people not do? Ask yourself, at what point would they say, oh, that's too horrible, we can't do that? There is no point. We have to make a concerted effort. We have to have a battle plan, and we have to make sacrifices, or we're going to see this happen. If you'd gone back, say in the 1980s, and told people where America was going to be going, in the next 40 years, you would just think you're crazy, And I know this because God showed me where we were going, and they were very polite. I spoke at churches even and told them where we were going, what I'd seen. God gives me visions sometimes and dreams, and I mean, they're totally come true. And I can't convince you of that because I can make up any lie, and anybody can make up a lie about that. But I'm just saying that it is true, and have records. I have videos even that I made like 20 years ago. I knew it sounded like Mad Men. You know, someone that fell out of a well, it sounded ridiculous. And I knew that, but I also knew it was coming. Because when God tells you something, you just know it. You don't know it like your neighbor tells you, or even your family tells you. You don't know it like that. You know it like it's already happened. I mean, to you in your heart, it's already happened. And so I saw it coming, and I tried to warn people. I tried to think of ways to stop it and share with people, and nobody really wanted to hear it. You know, they believed me too. They came up after the church meetings and they believed me, but it just wasn't as real to them as it was to me. So I kept wondering, well, when is this going to hit, God? You know, when are they going to do it? When Obama was elected, so surely they'll see it now. No, they didn't see it. And it just keeps going on and on. It just continues to go on, and we don't have much more time. We don't have much more time to save your children or your grandchildren. We don't have much more time. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm sorry to have to talk to you like this. I don't like to think like this, but I just know it's true. I mean, everything I've seen, I can tell you details that have come true. I mean, specific things that have already come true. I can tell you some more stuff that's coming. I probably will. But we have to attack this, and we have to attack it now. You know, there's no more waiting. So anyway, I'll see you next time on the next show. I hope you keep watching, and we're going to go through some things that have to be changed. And I hope that you'll stand and fight for your children, because that's really where it's at right now.